Okay, I think we're good. We're getting ready to start here shortly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, good morning. I would now like to call to order the September 11th, 2024 meeting of the Indiana State Board of Education meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bess.
Here.
Ms. DeLosa.
Present.
Mr. Durham.
Present.
Dr. Ernest.
Here.
Mr. Gastineau.
Here.
Ms. Hamill.
Here.
Mr. Mapes.
Here.
Ms. Moat.
Here.
Ms. Rentschler.
Here.
Mr. Watts.
Here.
And Dr. Jenner.
Here. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda with the request that we shift item 6 to item 8 and move the other items, yes, item 6 to item 8 and move the other items up. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. And is there a motion to approve the minutes from the August 14th, 2024 meeting?
So moved. Second.
The motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, well, it's September 11th, and for many of us in this room, you probably woke up this morning like I did, remembering back about 23 years ago. That is definitely a moment that those of us who are old enough probably absolutely remember where we were, not only that morning, but that day, that week, and the months ahead. So just wanted to certainly acknowledge that, and hopefully across the state of Indiana and in our classrooms today, you know, as the years pass and as a younger generation is in our classrooms who obviously were probably not here when September 11th happened, I hope that our teachers in schools are acknowledging the significance of that date, and we can never forget the bravery that so many showed that day on behalf of our country and citizens. So just wanted to start there, and hopefully you can find some time today to reflect on the magnitude of what this day means for our country. We can never forget. Switching to probably a more cheerful topic, I'll just say, is we announced the top 3 Indiana teacher finalists for Teacher of the Year. As you know, we have about 65,000 teachers. So, you know, even the top 25 is incredible, but we're down to the top 3. And I just want to recognize them publicly. Chet Dixon of Mooresville Consolidated School District, Ellie Minogue of Tippecanoe School Corporation, and Grisela Miranda of the Metropolitan School District of Pike Township. So really, really proud of these 3 teachers. of course, all of our teachers across the state, but these three for being our top three to represent us. Congratulations. On Friday night, we had our third annual Educational Excellence Awards Gala. It was a sold-out crowd. About 600 educators and supporters packed a ballroom, and many of you were there. It's a black tie event. I mean, it is red carpet. We actually roll out the red carpet for our teachers, and it's just a phenomenal event. It's put on actually with many sponsors, some of whom are in the room, some of whom are watching online, and some who are probably don't watch very often. But our sponsors and the supporters from around the state who are supporting our educators, we just can't thank you enough for helping us to elevate our educator profession. Also, I couldn't go further without shouting out Dr. Rebecca Estes and her team. You all know this, everything you see today or that we get done as a state, it takes an army of people working behind getting that done, and Rebecca helped lead that gala effort for the third year in a row. Also want to just point out that today we have a couple of really important topics to discuss. First, we'll hear Dr. Keller, who will present the 23-24 chronic absenteeism data and the ways we continue to elevate the importance of student attendance in Indiana. Our teachers and schools are going to work day in and day out to move the needle for students. It's key that we have students present in the classroom. So we'll talk about that data. And then the second is we will hear from Dr. Estes, Dr. Holsapple, and Joe Quiz from iCase, who have partnered together to really understand where is our educator data today. So we have the supply-demand marketplace that gives us a really good sense of where we need to triage. And special education was top of the list. So a couple of years ago, iCase and several special education leaders came to our special education leaders and said, how about we work together? And boy, do you have some results. So we're excited to see those today. All right, on that note, are there any other board comments or reports? Yes, Dr. Ernest.
So you already talked about it, but I also was reflecting this morning, and I want to give just a shout out to teachers in that I'm vintage enough that I remember the Challenger crash and being in a classroom with students. I remember 9/11 being in a classroom with students. And it's one more true example of just how complex education and being a teacher is. No one can prepare us for those moments, yes. Right? And so I just want to acknowledge our teachers in that, and that's not to take away from first responders and all the other people that were involved in that. And, you know, the bully punched us, but we stood up to the bully. But it also took teachers helping our students through that trauma as well. And I want to acknowledge that. I was really reflecting on that as I was driving down this morning, watching airlines go in and out. It's like, no, they didn't stop us from anything, right? They punched us, knocked us down, and our teachers were a big part of that. And I remember what that was like to be a teacher trying to sort through what's that look like, right? And nobody was telling us at that time really how to do that. It's just we had to adjust on the fly. So yes. Teachers, I want to recognize that and applaud you for every day having to deal with things that nobody really ever prepares you for, because they can't. That's not to say that's a bad thing, but so anyway.
Excellent point. Thank you for that comment. Any other board comments? All right. Seeing none, let's shift to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Katie, before we get there,
yes.
On the consent agenda, I need to recuse myself from item B.
Okay, Pat Mapes, item B, is recusing.
I also need to recuse myself from item B.
And Greg Gastineau recusing from item B. Any other recusals before I call for a motion? All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
With a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, so let's jump right in to new business and our discussion items today. So we will start with Dr. Keller, who will walk through the student attendance dashboard and where we are today. Good morning.
Good morning.
And if you want to, on the tech team, flip it over to the PowerPoint. And board members, you do have that in front of you as well. Do we have any facing the audience? Can you all see? Oh, you have the best screen of all. I was looking here like we should turn one of these around, and you all have the biggest screen. Okay, good.
Oh, good morning, Dr. Jenner and fellow board members. I'm looking forward to sharing this information with you today. We came and had a first version of this conversation 11 months ago. You'll remember we presented on attendance on October 4th of last year. And some of the slides you'll see, if you remember back to that day, are going to be sort of redos of that presentation just with updated data. But we're also going to be sharing some new information as well. So let's hop right into it. So just a reminder that we've kind of shifted our focus from just a school-focused look at attendance down to a student-focused look at attendance, looking at the individual students, and GPS kind of was our first attempt at looking at the importance of 94% attendance rate. So the old way of looking at attendance was adding up all the days kids could have attended school, looking at all the days they did attend, and then creating a rate out of that number. Now we're looking at it at the student level and saying, for this kid, did they attend 94% of the time they could have attended? And how many of those students have actually, that's the numerator, and then the denominator is all of the kids, right? So that's our focus. And then definitionally, chronic absenteeism, as you'll recall, is 10% of missing school 10% of the time for any reason, and habitual truancy, which is in Indiana statute defined as 10 or more unexcused absences, right? So they do sort of connect to one another, but they have important definitional distinctions. So one question, just to kind of get you into the thinking about the problem in a maybe very real way, is like maybe write down, if you have your pen in front of you, write down a number of how many school buses would be filled if all of our students who are chronically absent or were chronically absent last year were to come to school on the same day. A school bus holds about 72 kids, elementary kids, I think. I actually looked that up. So, okay, if you got your number written down, here's the number for this year. It is lower, but still a little startling. Last year we were at 3,086. That's in the footnote there. So let's look at how, so it's an improvement, and we always want to celebrate improvements, and data are moving in the right direction, but we still have some work to do. So here is a slide that's showing the trend from 2022 when we start to reverse in significant ways, and you'll see the sort of benchmark year of 2020, and I believe actually 19 was even just a touch lower than 2020, but you can see, the sort of impact of COVID there, and that we, I believe have turned the corner. These are not insignificant improvements, but obviously we've not returned to the pre-pandemic attendance. When we look at this data across grade levels, this curve remains unchanged from last year when we first presented it. We have some kind of I call it a kind of a J-shaped curve with the high school grades still showing the greatest level of absenteeism, chronic absenteeism. In comparing this data to last year, there was an improvement in each grade level. So each of these numbers is 1 or 2% lower. And so one of the, and you'll see this in the other data on the next slides, but I sort of feel like I use the term symmetrical improvement, right? It's not just in one area or the one population. What we're seeing here, this 1.4% decrease in the chronic absenteeism rate is widespread, and that's a good thing. Another sort of statistical way of looking at this and trying to understand the distribution of chronic absenteeism across schools, we tried this last year, and we just, the green is this year's numbers, by the way, but kind of broke the schools up into 5 groups. One is 10%, less than 10%, that's the first column on the left, and then sort of 1 out of 10, 1 out of 4, 25%, 1 out of 3, 33%, 1 out of 2, right? And you see how that sort of goes across the screen there. So again, improvements in each of these categories. We have an increase of 106 students, 106 schools who have shifted over into that first side, and those come from the columns on the right, right? So we see things moving in the right direction. And here again, a symmetrical kind of shift.
Hey, John, we
Yes.
do have a question. BJ, do you want to ask that?
And these include, I actually went back and looked, so you did tell me already, I apologize.
No, you're fine.
This is both excused and unexcused absences.
Chronic
registered in
absenteeism.
All of this data, correct?
Correct.
So you are
We're not
sitting in the chair, doesn't matter where you were.
Correct.
You weren't here.
Correct.
Okay.
So none of the data that I'm showing you here is sensitive to the habitual truancy definition. We're using chronic absenteeism.
That was my question, yeah,
And one of the reasons for that is even though habitual truancy is outlined in Indiana law, chronic absenteeism has a more national definition, and we feel like that's where we want to kind of benchmark ourselves.
Yeah, totally. And if you recall, to John's point about chronic absenteeism having a national definition, last year, the October 4th meeting, we learned that our nation, our 74 million students across the nation, they were at about 25% chronically absent. So about a fourth of students. Last year, we were at 19.3%. We're going down again. But just to give you a sense of that national look and definition there.
Yeah. Okay. Right. The next few slides are kind of slicing this data in multiple ways. Here's a view of the data over time with ethnicity, and we did add the statewide chart in the last column there. So you see all of the ethnic groups are following a fairly similar trend, not entirely, but that there's again decreases with each group. So we like to see that, and you can see how each of the group compares to the statewide averages in each year. If we look at socioeconomic status, here again, we have free and reduced lunch meals students and students who are paying. We see the patterns there. And then another population we're looking at is English learners versus non-English learners. Still seeing some improvement in the non-English learners. It seemed, obviously, like in 21, they went up while English learners went down. But that now we're both populations are on a downward trend. So I'm going to pause on this screen, and you'll recall that we quoted some data from the New York Times last year in October, and I believe the statistic was something like if a student had had 3 days of absences within 30 days of the NAEP test, they were seeing statistically significant differences, right? And so bringing that thinking here, like what is the academic impact for us? And so the next slides look at the impact with iRead, the impact with iLearn, and the impact with the SAT. All assessment measures that we use here in Indiana. So, and the data pretty much speaks for themselves. There are stark differences between the populations on all of these measures. And you can see the magnitude of those here.
The magnitude, sorry, my voice is louder than yours.
You're
Sean.
good. Go ahead.
I'm just saying. The magnitude of that is startling, you're right. And if you think about our inverted bell curve, I know we've talked to a lot of different groups about this. We look at the high school, which is certainly the most significant, but we also, if you look at kindergarten and first grade, that is a lot higher than it should be when our teachers are working on the foundations with kids. So we've got to make sure that habit is early, that kids are getting to school.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, but I'll say, no matter the quality of the interventions doesn't matter so much if they're not in the room, right? So.
Another question.
With
Yes.
what Katie just asked, is there any way that we can pull those students that were chronically absent in first and second grade and their performance on iRead?
Yeah, we're doing some
I
analysis.
think that would be, what you just said, I think would be the most telling.
We're working on some analysis that actually takes that a step farther and actually looks at, okay, of the students who were chronically absent in any grade this year, were they the prior, and the prior, and the prior, and the prior, right? So I don't have that analysis done yet, but that's where we're thinking, I think the pattern is going to show you that there's, one of the things we did already, and I need to scrub this, but the general population this year, we had 205,269 students who were chronically absent. And about half of them had been chronically absent in one of the prior 3 years. And half of them were new to the roster, if you will. So that gives you a sense of, and I'm guessing there are probably different approaches that we use to address the most chronic of the chronic absenteeism versus things that are maybe a little bit more episodic and not as of a long-term pattern, but that's what we're trying to look at with that broader analysis, so we're working on that. All right, then taking that into iLearn and the ELA and math performance, here again you see consistent dramatic differences across the populations for non-chronically absent versus chronically absent. And I don't know how to talk statistically about the accrual effect is what Mr. Watts was kind of talking about. What is the cumulative effect? We see how students who are absent this year, but if you dive into that first bar, that yellow bar there, and say, well, of those students, how many of them were chronically absent since the first day of school? That's something that, I mean, if we isolate that population, I would expect the numbers to be even lower for that population, but it just underscores and double clicks on that point that must be present to win.
That also hits on, go back to that last slide, John. That's where that 94% comes from. Remember, it is statistically significant. Students who are coming to school 94% of the time are doing better significantly on the iLearn. So as a parent or a grandparent or whatever, that 94% or more really, really matters. Teachers could have told us this before we ran the data, right? But running the data, it is very clear students need to be in the classroom in order to make the greatest performance.
And you think about, 94% is 10.8 days of miss. That's still a fair amount of missing school, right? I mean, overall. So, 94% sounds high, but it's still a significant amount of school miss, but that break point is durable. All right, let's go to the SAT. So, and I don't think we use the SAT language on here, but that's our college-ready benchmark. So that's the assessment we're looking at here. All right. So I'm going to distill this a little bit. This may not be an exhaustive list of takeaways, but the chronic absenteeism for Indiana is moving in the right direction. There's been a cumulative improvement of 3.3% over the past couple of years. And you see there at the bottom improvements across ethnic groups, Black, Hispanic, students receiving free and reduced lunch, English learners, all of them going up at least or improving by at least 10 points. Again, improvement here is decline, right? So usually we think about improvement with the bars going up, but we want the bars to go down. Additionally, we have more schools who have 10% or less, right? And remember from that graph of the years, 10% was the state average in 2020, right? So if we could get back to that, I mean, we have we want to have schools moving over to that left side of that graph, but we are seeing some improvement. Rates of chronic absenteeism continue to be highest in the high school grades, and if you look just at those grades, those were in the mid-20s. If you average just high school students, that, you know, if we were just basing Indiana's average on high school students, it'd be in the mid-20% of chronically absent. And then, as we just saw on the slides that I've covered, significantly less likely to read, master ELA and math skills, or be college ready on our college benchmark assessment. All right. So I'll pause there to see if there are any questions about the data. Now we're going to sort of pivot into how some of the data is being used, some tools we're bringing online. But are there any questions about any of the data itself?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I think these numbers obviously are startling and they can show some improvement, but my question is, do we know the why behind the absenteeism? And I am asking that question because if we know the why, that gives us some runway on how we can come up with a solution. So do we know the why behind some of these absenteeisms?
I don't think at the state level we know the why. I think what we're, and you'll see this in the presentation I'm about to continue, our general focus has been making sure that there are no insights in the data that remain unturned, but what we're doing is holding up the mirror on this attendance data and allowing schools to slice it any way they can possibly think of, but the interpretation of the why is really going to have to be a locally determined thing, because the reasons for these numbers, I think, are probably about as varied as the schools. I'm sure there are some through lines, and I think you know, one of the things we could be positioned in a good place is to elevate examples of folks who are beating the average, right? Who are significantly outrunning the rest of the pack, finding what are you doing, right? And to what extent is what you're doing replicable in other schools. So we're certainly keeping our eye on that, but I don't think there's a sort of a simple one or two things like, here's the two reasons, and if you just change that, we're gonna see a more precipitous improvement. That would be my answer. I don't know, Dr. Jenner, if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think your point about looking at the local level has been really key. We've had some schools that have really moved the needle quickly, but they've been working at it and doing some very strategic efforts locally. So now this dashboard is going to go live today. Is that right?
We have a version of the dashboard that's been live since August 23rd. That's
Yep.
for the schools. And then in September or early October, we'll be putting out a public version of the dashboard.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go ahead and get
Yep.
to what this dashboard shows us.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a preview of the dashboard, and then I'm going to do a live demo. So I'm going to look at the next couple things will be screenshots, and then I'll cut over to a live demo. So the address at the top of the screen there is where the public version of this will be. I'm going to be showing you the school version of this, which is more real time for the schools. So the first thing that the dashboard shows is the attendance by week. And you can see this across the last couple of years. You can see the attendance rate on every day of the week. And for schools, they'll be able to see the attendance up to the prior week. So the public version will give a good view of all of the certified data that we've had all the way up through the prior school year. And the schools will have real-time data to analyze the impact of their interventions in near real time.
And John, before you go to the next one,
Yeah.
just to be clear, on the public option, will the general public be able to sort just
Yes.
as we see it here
Yes.
by corporation, by school, by grade,
And
to
they'll
really
have
see?
we'll actually have a few more filters for the public as well.
Okay.
And I'm going to, one of the slides here will illustrate what that's going to look like. All right. So then, you'll see this graph really kind of harkens back to the slide I just had, right? This is showing that grade level, but here you can actually pivot and move your mouse over a school on the map. see like proximity, how are our schools in a certain area doing, and you can see on the bottom pane where it says the different corporations, you can actually click on one of those plus symbols and see all of the grade levels underneath that school, so you can see how are the grade levels at that particular school doing. Again, so the focus on this has been to try to get to as granular a picture of data as possible to support what Mr. Durham was asking about, the interpretation. So we don't know what, if your sixth graders are having are on the struggle bus, we don't know why your sixth graders are on the struggle bus, but maybe you do, and you can compare it to like, oh, well, they weren't last year, what happened, right? So again, we're just trying to hold up that mirror and give a very sharp reflection of the data. And again, all of this data is what the schools have submitted to us. And on the public version, it'll be data that schools have submitted to us and certified for their school corporation. On absenteeism and truancy insights, you'll notice there's some sub-tabs over there on the right where the map is currently showing chronically absent, but if you clicked on the habitually truant side, it would be the same map, but just with the habitually truant data. So here again, using both of those definitions and showing where the pockets of challenge are. And again, as Dr. Jenner pointed out, on the left side, you'll be able to do some sorting to narrow in on some insights.
Can you
this
go back to
yep,
that,
yep,
please?
Yep.
The other effort with this and the school districts that have really started to move is it's not just the school doing it by themselves. They're working with a number of community partners for the full effort to get students to school. So you can see, I'm just looking at northern Indiana, the region, if you will, and you can see there's a massive pocket of blue a few places. But then there are also some areas where that really is going to take a county or a city effort to think through how to make sure kids are in school. So we're going to do the best we can, and we need our community partners with us as well.
Yeah, and that's why the public version is so critical, right? Because you can't have the conversations about what's going on without all of the members of the public having access to that. So that's coming very soon. These screenshots that show draft are, we're hoping to get it done by today, but we want to make sure it's right, not quick, and so we'll be getting it out real quickly here. So this version or this image shows some additional filtering. So on the top, the secondary list of tabs there, where it says socioeconomic status, you'll see if you click on that, you'll be able to see excused absences and unexcused absences and chronic absenteeism and habitual truancy for each of those populations. If you click then on English learner status, those will all change and you'll see all of that data for all of those kids, right? So this and then the subsequent tab there at race ethnicity, you'll be able to see all of that as well. So again, essentially think of it as the slides I just shared to you, but at the school level, historically, lots of ability to just sort of narrow in and see what's really going on there, what the trends are. All right, so I think that brings us to the demo, so just give me 1 second to kind of cut over to the dashboard. Right, so this is the live version. And as I said, the live version has data that's up to, this version has data that's up to the 6th of September, right? So, and we have the ability to do that because schools' student information systems are directly connected to us, and they're sending that attendance data in all the time, literally every day. Again, you can see the filtering on the left-hand side there, and it just defaults to the current week. So why is Monday looking like it is? That was, what? Labor Day, right? So that's why that looks like that, right? Were some kids in school on Labor Day? Apparently so. Or maybe the data is incorrect, right? So that's the part of the real-time version. Like, this is why this is for schools and not for the public, right? And then if we go to attendance events by date, you've seen this slide before, but you can literally say, okay, for 24-25, I now know in August what my attendance rate on Mondays is versus Tuesdays versus Wednesdays, right? And I can see how that compared to the Monday rate in years prior, right? So again, I can't tell you that there's anything significant about a 1/10% difference between Monday of this year, Monday of last year. That's up to local schools, communities to have a conversation and say, well, this is an interesting trend, and we connect it to things we know about. We just wouldn't have that context to be able to make that kind of a determination. All right, the attendance insights. Again, here, I'll kind of demo something I couldn't do on the slide, but there you can see if you just mouse over a school, and we're on the unexcused absence side of things here, so we're just seeing what is the unexcused absence rate there, right? If I want to open up a school, I can click on that and see all the schools below it and see the rates of those schools. Then if I close it, I'm back up to the corporation level. And if I want to sort by a particular school, I can do that here. The dates for the public view would only be 23 and back. So if I just click on that, that would be more a version of what the public would see. Again, very, very similar.
So can the public see, will the public be able to see current year data?
Not up until, not the live data, because that data
Schools will see the live data.
Schools will always see the live
Yeah.
data, yep.
Yeah.
And that's because they have the ability to change it if it needs to be changed, like correct something, that'll come through directly, but we want to make sure that the public is seeing something that is not going to change and that has been certified, because certified means the school has signed off and said, I'm standing behind this data, it's correct, and we ask schools to sign off on their data in July of each year, so that's why we're putting only certified data out to the public. All right. And then again, chronic absenteeism and habitual truancy. You see that here. And you can click on any school and see the habitual truancy for that particular school, right? And so again, we just want to make sure that everybody has access to the data. We have a definition table here of all of the terms, so you can understand what's going on and aid in interpretation. But that is what we have on the attendance insight dashboard. So last year when we were talking about what do we do about these trends, we were talking about an early warning system. I'm going to show you that as well. We've launched that this week, actually. And the attendance insights are something that we did in addition because we wanted to have something that was available to all schools and to the public. And obviously early warning is something that has very sensitive data in that you can really only share with educators. So we wanted to make sure that we widened the aperture for this data. So before I switch back to the presentation, were there any questions about the demo?
Can you actually go to you have one more slide that connects this to the why transparent attendance data really matters?
Yep, so I'll roll through these. So we want to help folks analyze student data attendance over time. Truly, there are going to be a lot of answers to why are our numbers what they are, but without the ability to analyze and review data historically, you're not going to be able, we want to set the table for schools to do that analysis. Identify trends and patterns, areas where data collection can be improved. We want to work with a variety of stakeholders to identify root causes. And again, our ability there is going to be more like having our finger on the pulse of the data, like, ooh, here we got an outlier. What's going on with the outlier? And those outliers could be on either side, either of the tails, right? It's like, here are folks who are really hitting the ball hard and they're having outsized, 2 standard deviation improvement compared to other schools. And maybe here are some schools who need some extra support, who are kind of going the other way. We hope not, but we should. That's where we can add some value to the discussion. Fourth bullet point, just reviewing attendance policies and utilizing them daily on a weekly, monthly, and annual basis to inform those policy decisions. These are, I think, you would probably all agree that this is a long play, not a short play. I mean, maybe there are a few things that you can do in the near term, but a lot of these things, if you're really gonna kind of get down to it, are probably gonna be long play kinds of things. And you're gonna need community support. You're gonna need everyone to buy in and say, well, we've got to do this to get things moving in the right direction. An idea, setting goals, right? You say, okay, well, what was the state improvement? I'll give an example. I'm not really advocating for this, but the state improved 1.4%. What if your school said, we're gonna always try to beat the state average by a factor of 2. We're gonna try to get 2.8%, right? Anchor it in something that we know. Don't do something that's impossible to do, but set a goal. I mean, any goal to me is worth doing and celebrating. That's the other thing. If you meet it, celebrate it. And then always just evaluating the impact of current efforts. The data will be there, and I'm not saying you're going to see spikes in your data that you can directly tie to interventions that you have, but maybe there will be, right? And so always entertain that possibility, especially for schools who are sort of sitting on top of the live data feed. They may be able to see actual impact of short-term decisions in the live data.
Mr. Mapes.
First of all, John, thank you. This is unbelievable. But the one thing that I think we all need to look at here is the fact that we can utilize this with our parents to show that difference between academic achievement and whether or not you're at school. Because it doesn't matter how much the school sends letters, makes phone calls, parents have to understand that your kids in our buildings is how they can progress academically and build the skills they need to be successful. And we've really never had anything like this to be able to pull data out to really make that story. Mm-hmm. So thank you to your team for doing this for us, because I think it's something that can help all of us.
Thank you, Pat.
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Keller.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? I really appreciate your point about setting the goal. Just so everyone is aware, and I talked to a few board members before the meeting. This is a United States of America challenge, not just an individual state. And so there's a movement nationwide, bipartisan, to consider a state goal when you look back at a point in time. I believe it's 2022, which was our highest, right? Most states' highest. Within 5 years, you get back to the pre-pandemic rate, which for most states across our country, including Indiana, is reducing by about 50%. So we are on that trajectory as a state. We are moving. But I would just offer that. I mean, the department would absolutely be willing to lean in with some associations or some others to set a state goal. I just think rather than the State Board of Ed or the department doing it just us, we'd much rather see us come together and say, we're all in this to get kids to school. So I offer that to those in the room or to those who may be listening. We are very interested in setting a state goal, and in addition to challenging locals to set a goal, and those conversations will continue. So, thank you, John.
Sure.
Anything else? All right, let's go to the segue that you already set up, which is we have all of this data. We're making it transparent and usable, to Pat's point and others. We're also going to go a step further. So let's talk about that.
Excellent. And before I go to the next slide, I do want to just give a shout out to all of the data people in your schools who are really making this possible. Like we've been investing as a state in modernized data systems and data collection for since 2017. And the stuff that you're seeing on screen does not happen by magic, right? You have to have the data to support it. And that data is coming from the schools. And the schools have been amazing partners. We could not do any of this without the daily attention to data quality, to data submission. Anything you saw on those screen, any data-wise, is because schools are getting it done on the data side. So just just know that I'm excited. I'm the data guy, so I get a little geeked out over some of this stuff, but we're at a position where I think we can, as a state, begin to realize some major payoffs to those investments, all right? Providing data in a transparent way at a level of granularity that is unparalleled. So we want to build a number of what I would call killer apps on top of this data to support improved performance in the classroom, in schools, and transparency to the public. So back in October, we had some screenshots for you about sort of artist rendition, if you will, of some early warning systems. While for obvious reasons, I'm showing you screenshots again. We can't just kind of do an early warning system live review in a public meeting. But this is a screenshot from a real system that we launched on Monday with 11 school corporations as a pilot. And I'm not going to give a primer on or what early warning systems are, but to say we looked at data from over 300,000 graduates of Indiana schools who had been in Indiana for their entire 12 years of school. We looked at the data patterns of those who graduated versus those who did not graduate. And then we look at those patterns for the non-graduates, and we say, in our current students, which of the students are exhibiting similar behaviors and data patterns to those who did not graduate. And that's essentially what an early warning system is. It says, the data system isn't telling you this kid is not going to graduate. It's just that they have a data pattern that is reminiscent, if you will, of someone who may not graduate. And so you might want to intervene now. So what are some of the data that goes into that? Attendance, which is what we're talking about here, courses, assessment, behavior, and a host of other things, but those are the big buckets. So what we have here is the ability to share at a school level. So when schools log into this, they are seeing only their school, all right? And if a teacher at a school is logging in, they're seeing only the students that are assigned to them, okay? Pretty basic stuff. And these are two other screenshots from the same system. It shows you the risk. The risk bands here are in the blue. Blue is mild risk, and then so like for example here in 6th grade, of the 582,000 students that the system is seeing, 82% of them are not exhibiting risk based on our data model, right? So then on the bottom right corner, you see a more student level view of how that risk shakes out. And you see in the columns there, attendance, behavior, course performance, and assessment, along with an overall ranking that includes not just those, but some broader metrics. And then the ability to sort that over on the left-hand side in any way you can imagine, actually. So this is a tool that we're bringing online. Why are we only piloting it with 11 schools? The reason we're doing it slowly is because this is brand new territory for the department. There are so many ways to get this wrong. We're going to go slow, and we're going to get it right, but I would hope we can do this in a way where we can, obviously, to the extent that it's adding value to schools, we want to get it out as soon as possible. We want to stop the trial, take away the placebo, and give everybody the access, but we're not going to do it until we're confident in it. And so we are working with 11 school corporations, 13 schools, and we're doing a 2-month pilot to get their feedback, and we're really excited to hear how they're going to use it. We ask teams of people in those schools to participate so we can understand how this is a complementary tool to other things they're using, where you don't imagine that this is the only thing anyone is ever going to use. We're not trying to put anything out of business here. All we're saying is we want all schools to have a minimum level of understanding of what their data is telling them. And if this whets the appetite for more sophisticated systems that use more data and is tied into local systems, then I will celebrate that, right? So we just want to raise the bar and say everybody should have the ability to understand the riskiness of their students before they're getting into 11th and 12th grade, okay?
And I just want to pause, and then I see Scott as well. The predictive analytics and how conscientious you've been about the process has been remarkable. There's certainly various research articles out there that say, you should look at this, you should look at that. This really matters. But you have looked at Indiana data specifically to make the predictive analytics and build that out. It's fascinating behind the scenes. John could do a lesson on this for a long, long time, but it's really unbelievable. And when you think about, you all, we have 1.13 million children, and if we try to do all the things for every single child, in some respects we'll be boiling the ocean, versus who specifically needs the most help, and understanding that. What school district may have more at risk. I mean, there are a number of things that this is going to help us do. So thank you, John. Scott.
Yeah, so again, John, thank you both for the presentation and then the kind of the preview. And I think this is a great example. I could tell you from being involved in schools for a long, long time, a lot of times schools get really frustrated with the amount of statutorily mandated data that they have to turn in, and without any obvious return on that, other than it's required, so you have to produce it, and then at the end of the year, there's a report that shows something, but there's nothing actually that a school can do with it. This, along with what you showed on the attendance, is really a way to say, look, all this stuff matters, and we can now start to identify at a student level who's at risk, like who should you specifically be intervening with? Because it's difficult for schools when you look at the categories that you've got. They might be paying attention to attendance, but that's not necessarily linked with behavior. It's not necessarily linked with some of the assessment stuff. This is a way to bring it together and say, you should look at this student because they might only be in 5th grade or 6th grade, but they're on a trajectory that's probably not great, when it's very, very difficult for that elementary principal or guidance counselor to know that and predict that. And I think that this is a way for the department, a huge, huge kudos to everybody involved that says, look, yes, we've been taking all this data, we've been doing it for a long time, we've actually used that data, crunched it, now we can predict it, and now here's a tool for you to use that can actually make a difference in, we've kind of been stuck on this, hey, we're at 87%, graduation rate. We've been there for decades, right? This is a way to say, no, that's not good enough. Why not get it to 95%? And you can do that by saying, well, we're going to specifically intervene with these students because they have these characteristics, and we know that leads to bad outcomes. And so again, the point of all that is, I'm sure it's not the first time, but it's one of the best examples of the department and at a state level saying, again, in the country, saying we can actually turn this statutory required data around and make it really useful to you in a way that matters in the life of a student. So that's a huge thanks.
Thank you.
It's a really good point, and we're not done yet. We have some really interesting things coming still being worked on, and I'm going to show some restraint and not talk about them right now. But maybe I can come back and talk about those in the future. One thing you did remind me of, though, is that if you are one of the pilot schools right now, you can mouse over a student's name on this slide, and it'll show you, like, let's suppose they're at moderate risk for attendance. It'll show you all of the days they've ever missed, and do that as a percentage of the days they've ever been enrolled, right? So it's not just looking like, were they chronically absent last year? Okay, a little bit more risk. It's breaking that down to the day level, building it back up. I moused over, I was doing some testing on this last week, and I moved my mouse over one student. They had missed like 325 days of school. So, I mean, that's something that you can't do without this level of granularity of data. And so we want to just turn this around and say, you know what, these investments are paying off. They were worth doing. And we have some tools that can support the real work in schools. So, all right, thank you for making that point. Then, just again, to go back to Indiana GPS, Certainly attendance is a major piece of this. We've talked about the 94% attendance rate. We actually also are putting kids in schools for the GPS metrics based on attendance as well. So relative attendance, you can sort of look at where kids were tested versus where kids attended the majority of the school year. And so again, we're trying to leverage the attendance data in any way we can to support the correct and thorough interpretation of the metrics that make up the GPS dashboard. So that is the end of my presentation, and I really appreciated your comments and insights. I'm happy to take any more if there are some last questions on the table.
Any more questions or comments for Dr. Keller? All right. Thank you very much for your work, John, and all of your team's work, and the schools who are piloting to set us up in the best way for the state.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll now shift to our second discussion topic for today, which is strengthening Indiana's teacher pipeline with a specific focus today on special education. So with us, we have Dr. Estes, who's going to be joining online, Nancy Holsapple, and Joe Quiz from iCase.
Good morning, Dr. Jenner, board.
Yeah, and if you want to, team, put the presentation on the slide deck, and then Dr. Estes will be perfect. Good morning, Dr. Estes. We're ready for you.
Good morning. Board, thank you for the opportunity to share today. I'm going to kick off this presentation to take us through a little bit of our teacher pipeline data first, and then ask Dr. Holsapple to walk you through some exciting details about strategies and solutions that she and her team have supported to positively impact a clearly identified need. Next slide. Employed in over 2,200 schools, Indiana has around 65,000 teachers. Additionally, there are about 1,400 teaching positions that are currently posted to the statewide job board across all grade levels and content areas. Of those, nearly 300 are specific to special education. And while Indiana's specific data does indicate a need for additional educators, in many instances, it's reflective of fewer people entering the profession and historically fewer people entering into those programs specifically aimed to target vacancies in high-need areas. Next slide. The great question that most states get asked is, how do you know where your shortages are? And like most other states in the past, we were limited to a narrative that said we had a teacher shortage generally. And like most other states, through survey responses, we could pretty confidently say certified special education teachers were in need, but quantifying that need was a little more challenging. Through Governor Holcomb's prioritization of the creation of the educator supply and demand marketplace in 2022, through the Next Level agenda, we were able to launch the demand side of that platform in March of 2022. And pretty early on, our early indication that special education was a significant area of need was confirmed as schools began to utilize the system to post vacancies for that hiring season. Next slide. As schools continued to utilize the applicant tracking system and the job board posting access, we went to work on the creation of the supply side access to the marketplace that launched in June of 2023. We had several collaboration sessions with our ed prep program leaders across the state to determine a plan for including candidate profile creation into their program of study, and simultaneously individuals around the state, educators and support staff began to create candidate profiles on the platform indicating their credentials, their experience, and their desires when it came to employment in Indiana schools. The supply side is still growing, and it allows us to get closer to predicting where potential future shortages might exist, but also allows school users to see and recruit from individuals who are seeking employment now and in the future. So as an example, school leaders could look for individuals in the supply side who have an interest, who they might have an interest in hiring, but they may not graduate for 2 years and know that they have an upcoming retirement and will need to fill that role. So this is especially significant for some of our schools who are not geographically close to our ed prep partners, where a steadier flow of candidates may exist due to student teaching placements and field experiences. It really gives them some recruitment access and tools to candidates pretty early on. All of this to share that we have access to far more robust data, and we're able to make decisions and support initiatives that solve very specific challenges related to the educator pipeline. And sticking with the staffing needs in special education, Dr. Holsapple is going to share about how her and her team have been laser focused in on supporting some of those targeted solutions. All right,
Next slide.
Dr. Holsapple.
Oh, we're missing some sound. This is how, like, if you're a teacher, how many times have you been through this with kids in front of you? I can think of so many times I have where, you know, you're getting it, getting the sound. So we'll try not to stare at you while you're doing
it. It did not cost the money that I need so that my children can go do whatever they're going to grow up to do.
a really and have some others on the docket. So the success of what you all have built is absolutely, the return on investment showed we needed to do this more broadly. So, and I think I heard we have sound. Great.
Yep, keep going all the way to the end. All right, now let's do this one.
I have 3 teenagers in high school. One is going to college next year, and part of the asset program being an asset is that it did not cost the money that I need so that my children can go do whatever they're going to grow up to do.
A really interesting part of why iSeal an asset launched is when we looked at our state data, we knew that we had a challenge when it came to specifically recruiting certified special education teachers. We saw that all over the state. So rather than admiring the problem, we brought together some of the brightest minds to find a solution. We brought together other teachers, principals, superintendents from all over the state of Indiana and said, help us come up with ideas.
Asset is a no-cost program to the candidates, and it is completed during their workday when they're already under contract with their local school. So our professionals are granted professional leave absences for those days to attend their full-day sessions, which spans over the course of 11 months. Everything we do is aligned by design with the CEC standards, which is the Council for Exceptional Children.
I would want other teachers to know that this is something that is doable while working full-time.
For us, having teachers or the opportunity for teachers to go through both the asset and the iSeal program give us an opportunity to take our current teachers that know and love Warren and we know, love, and grow kids and give them an opportunity to continue to grow in their profession and do something different.
From my perspective, if there are districts not enrolled in iSeal, do it because it's been such a boon for us, and I think it only value adds to any school's culture.
My name is Mrs. Kimberly Stroop. I teach high school to life at Heron Riverside High School. Can you give me $5, please?
I think the biggest benefit is that Kim gets to be in the building supporting our students. Otherwise, we may have to find someone who is not as much of an expert, and that really creates a disadvantage if that were to happen. So this program has been so beneficial for us because she gets to be in the building, gaining expertise, using her knowledge from the program to support our students.
I was very, very nervous. I thought, oh goodness, working all day and then having to come home and do homework, maybe an hour a night and then maybe 3 or 4 hours on the weekend to get it all done. But I never felt I had to tell my husband no, I never had to tell my kids no, we can't do that.
As we've already seen, just in the short time of launching iSeal and Asset, what a value it is to have high-quality special education teachers serving our students. So for any school or district or teacher who might be interested in learning more, please check out the additional resources we have. And also, if you're a person who is not currently an educator, we'd love to have you, and we have a certification opportunity for you.
State Board Ed and Dr. Jenner, and thank you for allowing me to share some good news today since we're celebrating teachers. iSeal, I think we have a PowerPoint, but maybe I'll go ahead and talk. So iSeal is designed to increase the number of qualified special education teachers in Indiana, and it was designed to streamline and support educators who wanted to get special education license or an additional license, and the funding was the avenue that they elected. The participants who go through iSeal, they are either enrolled in a traditional higher ed program or they are in a T2T program. So when we first launched this, it was in early 2021. We were discussing all of the key aspects and the needs, and I'm sure everyone in this room is fully aware some of the barriers that Indiana experiences is across the United States. When I talk to my state director colleagues, they experience the same thing. And we had the opportunity to launch this in November of 2021. By December, so a month later, I had 300 people enrolled into the program. Today, we have over 1,000 participants. And when I say 1,000 participants, that's how many who have started. And today, we have, I'll share the completion number, which to me, you know, I'm always looking for better numbers, and I always look at the data. John Keller and I could have conversations all day about data. But when I look at, we still have 300 vacancies. To me, as the state director of special education, that is still 300 too many. I would eventually like to see 0 vacancies. Indiana offers the 4 special education license. The greatest need when we started looking at this data was for mild intervention. And then we have the intense intervention, we have blind and low vision, and deaf and hard of hearing. You can see by the numbers that the largest participant rate that we have is for the mild intervention. Even though the blind and low vision and deaf and hard of hearing are low incident students, there is still a great need and still the high expectation that all of our teachers are fully licensed. Currently, we have 289 school districts with participants, and when I was looking at the data, some of the board members have teachers in the program, so thank you for supporting it. And as I was sharing earlier, the total completion number is 590. So those are the folks who started in 2021. It was dependent on which route they went, whether it was traditional higher ed or T2T, and it also depended on how many coursework classes they needed to complete their licensure. But to date, we have 590 completion. This 289, just for your information, that includes our state schools. So we have educators from the School for the Blind, School for the Deaf, and we are responsible also for the Department of Correction, because we serve students until the age of 21. Even though they may be incarcerated, it is still my responsibility that they receive the education that they are entitled to. That's all I have to share. I'm going to turn it over to Joe Quiz. He's president-elect of ICASE, which is the Indiana Council of Administrators of Special Education. I work closely with ICASE because they are my key go-to people. Does anyone have any questions before I turn it over?
So we may, after Joe presents, so state board members, so there are two specific programs that are working to really triage that special education need. So Nancy just shared ISEAL, thank you very much. And then Joe is going to share about ASSET.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, first off, thank you for the opportunity to come here today and share some great information. Special thanks to Dr. Jenner, Dr. Holsapple. You talk about support in the field. These two women exemplify that daily. We are a phone call, a text message, an email away from solving problems on the daily. So that is very much respected by the field, by both of these leaders, and we can't thank you enough for that gratitude. So on a personal note, I'd like to thank a couple of our ICASE members for being here. Jill Lambert is our president-elect coming in. I'm the current president for ICASE, and Tammy Herm is our Governmental Affairs Committee chairperson. While we are all here representing ICASE to talk to you today, shortly after this concludes, we're going to go back to our day jobs as active directors in the field. So we wear a couple of hats.
Can you share just really quick for everyone, what is ICASE?
Sure. How much time do we have?
Well, not a ton, but.
Let me give you the elevator speech. So ICASE stands for the Indiana Council of Administrators of Special Education. So much like a superintendent association, principals association, we as active directors in the field have a statewide association as well. We also fall under a national umbrella called CASE, which is the Council of Administrators of Special Education on the national level. While I'm the ICASE president here, I am also just recently elected as the CASE national president-elect. So in 2 years, I will take over my term there as well. So Indiana is well represented both in the state and the national level by our organization, who is very active. We are the top unit in the nation for the past 2 years and looking for a three-peat. So we take pride in what we produce out of Indiana. We have given presentations on the national level about ISEAL and ASSET. So we have shared what we are doing on the national level with some of these programs here. And once again, it's great to get to share this data with you, what we're actually showing as a return on that investment. So is that good for ICASE?
That's
all right.
good elevator pitch, thank you.
Okay. So the biggest part of any presentation is not messing up somebody else's clicker. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, now
we're way ahead.
Pretty far.
Keep going back, please.
Go back one.
Please advance one forward. I was sitting there, I was thinking, gosh, I'm glad I'm not Dr. Holsapple standing there while Dr. Estes is speaking for this time, and here we are. Does this work now? All right, we'll give it a trial. There we go. Okay, now we're dangerous. So, ASSET is an approved alternative licensure program that falls under the Transition to Teaching umbrella and is designed for currently licensed educators in Indiana. So that's our big difference between somebody who is enrolling in a traditional transition to teaching program who has a bachelor's degree only but no teaching license. Our transition to teaching program falls under that umbrella that we are a endorsement add-on. So through our program, candidates can add either their mild, intense, or both intervention endorsements to their current license. So regardless of what they're teaching right now, if they want to work in special education, we can make that happen for them. The biggest things we sought out for this program, as somebody who's a father of 3 daughters, somebody who didn't love going to college, somebody who has just kind of grinded through things to get my endorsements and licenses, are how do we break down barriers for great people to work with some awesome kids in our state of Indiana. So ASSET is very proud to talk to you today that we have broken down the barriers of cost and time. There's no cost to the candidate to complete our program. And their time is what they are already working under their contracted hours during the workday. In that short promo video, you heard that they complete this during their day. So school's responsibility is to sub their candidates out, cover classrooms, and allow them their day of professional development each month to attend our program coursework. So we're very happy about that. We'll see some very interesting data about that piece in just a couple of slides. Missed a slide.
Jumping ahead one.
I swear this never
He's
happens.
trying to get to the next slide.
There we go.
There we
Okay.
go. Thank you.
So how about I just lean on you and I'll say next slide. We'll go that route. I'm gonna put this thing down. Okay, so here's our data to talk about. As we have worked with our members, 98% have completed the program or are currently enrolled. So we take our total enrollment and where we're at with our data as far as completions and current enrollments. 98% is amazing. 92% of those who have completed the program took the licensing exam. When we drill down that data to see why only 92%, we really see it's just life situations. Number one, you have your alternative licensure for 3 years. So if somebody completes the program or when somebody completes the program, they still have 2 years of active alternative licensure. So the window is there to not have to take it right away. We encourage they do, but not everybody does, as seen in the data. And then some life situations. My daughter got married, my family moved, I'm still working in Indiana, and I still plan to take it. So through our data collection process, we didn't really see anybody that said, I'm just simply not going to take the test at this point in time. That person may be out there, but as it stands, it looks like everybody who has completed the program plans on taking the test if they haven't yet. What we are most proud of right now is that 99% of candidates who have gone through our program have passed the licensing exam or exams on their first attempt. This is an amazing feat. I will tell you as an active director that when I have gotten somebody in who has been in the transition to teaching program, sometimes they are taking the licensing exam 3 to 4 times before they pass. That stalls out their progress. That's a cost to them because as we know, that exam is not free. And that is a barrier that could kick that person out of special education because after your second, third attempt and you're $700, $800, $900 into taking this with a family of 3 or 4, you just may not want to do it anymore. So when 99% pass, we feel like we're doing something right. Another strong data point is that 98% are still currently working in special education in Indiana schools. 98% still working in special education in Indiana schools. Our last point on here, and this is a big one I kind of joke about when I present on the national level because whether you're in a red state, you're in a blue state, we all speak green money on the budget line. And we're getting people through the program on an average cost of about $1,500 per person. Now there's no entry cost. This is our total cost divided by number of candidates we have in the program. Before we move on to the next slide, any questions about the data here or information presented?
I was just asked,
Yes, ma'am.
where is that money coming from? Which is a really good question, especially right now as federal dollars that were ESSER related are expiring essentially. We have to have those encumbered by September 30th.
Yes.
But these are IDEA Part B funds, which remain every year. So we're still, coming up. I keep getting asked about the session.
Right.
It's up, legislative session that's upcoming. Yes, it is on our radar to consider asking for some recruitment dollars, leveraging the data we have. In this particular asset, it is paid for by IDEA Part B, which will remain steady. So, any other questions before Joe moves on? The data point that you say 98% are currently still working in special education.
Yes.
I think that is,
It's
that's
amazing.
fantastic.
Yes,
So-
I don't have true data on this next comment, but as a director for the last 15 years, I will tell you if I get somebody in for a year and have a good year out of a person, that is a win. So for people to graduate programs and stay in special education, that is a huge win for the state of Indiana and our students and families.
Thank you.
Okay. Next slide, please. So this data point was very opening to me. You know, you kind of know these things as you talk to people and live life, but when we take our polls and have the hard data, almost 80% of our candidates, so 79% of our cohort members, said that they would not have pursued a special education license if not for asset. So when we look at the total number of people we have, take 80% of them out, that's a very small pot of people who would actually be looking to add special education. So again, back to our opening comments of getting great people to work in these positions with some awesome kids, we have really just strengthened that well quite a bit by this part of the program. Next slide, please. So after 3 years, and you'll see some pictures here, these are all of our cohorts. We were very diligent about taking the pictures, and sorry, I do not photograph well, so I'm in every one of these because I do help out with boot camp, and I'm very proud of what we do. Pictures speak, right? Look at all of these people who are impacting students across the state of Indiana. We are at 541, I think, is our total enrollment for the 3 cohorts of asset. Each person impacts roughly 30 kids. So when we do the math on that, this is nearly 17,000 Indiana students we're impacting by the ladies and gentlemen on these pictures in the screen here, just from the asset program. And that's a wonderful attribute to our state. That's a testament to the leadership in all departments. And, you know, we thank you for the continued support and relationship that we have with Dr. Jenner, Dr. Holzapfel, and their respective teams. So I think the next slide is just the thank you slide.
Well, and if you can go back actually to that one, because that's 1,657 current and future special education teachers is the sum
that's ISEAL and asset.
Of asset and ISEAL. So to Joe Quiz's point, if each of those teachers has 30 special education students on their caseload, that would be about 50,000 Indiana students, special education students impacted by this. So just wanted to pull that thread. Any questions for Joe or Nancy?
If I may have one closing comment on that point about the 50,000 students. So in the past, when we had our forbidden term, if you go back to George Carlin, is now emergency permit. We don't use that anymore. But back in that day, we would get somebody for a year, and they may not have any training in special education. Now with these 2 programs, not only are we pumping out licensed special education teachers, they're also receiving intensive training and support through the course and after the course in both ISEAL and asset. So as we look on a state level of moving the needle, we know that our special populations need to grow in many areas, and I don't know a better way to do that than having highly trained folks in the field working with these awesome kids every single day.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Dr. Holzapfel, Dr. Estes. Really appreciate your work, and let's keep at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, so we will now shift to public comment. I would, Erica, yes.
I just wanted to take a moment to really celebrate these programs. As someone working in the field of special education, this has been a lifesaver having these programs in place. As Dr. Holzapfel mentioned, you know, I even have a handful of that 590 people that have completed this program, and it has been a game changer for us. Special education does not have the luxury of, you know, grabbing someone in on an emergency permit to put them in place to make sure children with special needs are supported. So what that means is that other special educators are extended maybe further than they needed to be and overextended. And so this program and these programs give other educators and other people that aspire to be special educators the opportunity to go ahead and step out there and really gain the skills that they need to be great educators. It's just wonderful that this is going on. Into Mr. Quiz's point, with the 79% of the people in the program that said they would not have entertained a special education license, that just goes to show you how having these incentives is really going to be beneficial to Indiana children. And we know that special education is an area where we do need some improvement. So being able to provide this support to special educators and get more special educators in the field with a heart and a passion to really help children with special needs strive educationally. This is great. So I just wanted to take the moment to say kudos to you, thank you, and I'm so glad that these programs are in place.
Thank you, Erica DeLosa, for chiming in. I know our State Board of Ed members know this. Just for those listening, this hits close to home. Erica is a special education director in Gary, Indiana, so is constantly working on the recruitment of special education teachers. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. Appreciate it. Anyone else? And board, I'm going to shift to public comments unless anyone needs a restroom break. Okay. So let's now shift to public comments. Philip Gordon, our general counsel for the department and the state board, will read the opening statement, and then I will start calling people up.
Thank you, Dr. Jenner. Indiana's open door law permits state boards to adopt reasonable rules to govern the taking of oral public comment at a meeting. Boards may set time limits on each public comment and on the total amount of time for receiving public comment on a topic. Consistent with this framework, I'd like to remind everyone today of our public comment policy that's in place. Commenters shall be limited to 3 minutes per comment. If a public commenter signed up for a discussion item on the board's agenda, you'll be given 5 minutes. Those who have registered via the public comment form prior to today's meeting will be able to comment. And in the interest of everyone's time, the time limit will be strictly enforced. You'll hear me next to you with a buzzer, and when that alarm sounds, you'll be instructed to stop. Comments shall also be subject to the following rules consistent with the board's policy. No person may speak more than once. Comments shall be directed at the board, not to an individual board member. Questions will not be entertained, and comments shall not be abusive, argumentative, and persons making comments shall not debate comments made by other persons. So thank you very much. Look forward to public comment.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we start with, and what I will do is I will share the person who's at the podium and then give you 2 people who are on deck so you can make your way up here. So Kendra Johnson will be first, and then Kata Lang will be second, and Peter Sampson will follow that. Good morning.
Good morning to each and every one of you. This school year has started, and we're off and running. First things first, I want to send condolences out to the family of Senator Earlene Rogers. For those that knew her, she was a powerful advocate when it came to education. She would often tell me that my mother was her best friend in high school. So, and she would also say that she felt my mother would have been very proud of me because of the way I have advocated and spoke on behalf of families and children. I listened to all of you. I listened to the presentation about the absenteeism. And if you really wanted to speak with someone about why it's so high, I would be one of those individuals. With 25 plus years as not just a parent in the Gary School Corporation, but a public housing leader as well as a community leader, I dealt with many families, and I saw many of the problems that they had. Everything from the need of what they, because of needs within the family, income, lack of resources, illnesses. Even if a child was sick, sometimes they couldn't get a doctor's appointment for 3 or 4 days. So do you miss 3 or 4 days of school because you can't get a doctor's appointment for 3 or 4 days? But as I said before, once you analyze what the problems are, then you can go about trying to correct them. And with that being said, that's where the churches, organizations, and the community need to come together, as well as the businesses, to help improve our children's attendance and their needs in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. Kata Lang, Peter Sampson, followed by Adam Dostalik.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Kate Lang. I apologize for my terrible handwriting.
That's all right.
And I've been an educator in Indiana for 25 years, and I wanted to speak to the new high school diploma requirements. As a music educator, I see the many additional skills that students learn through the performing arts. Skills such as time management, responsibility, work ethic, teamwork, etc. The list can go on and on. All of these skills make people better employees and better members of society. I believe that listing the fine arts as a course that fulfill the requirements for graduation will benefit students as well as future employers of those students. In addition, including the extra hours spent in co-curricular performing arts be included in the work-based learning requirements for each SEAL, not just the SEAL Plus. As a middle school teacher, I see parents and students planning for high school even as they enter middle school. Without seeing these classes as valued as the state or how they are included in the diploma requirements, I'm concerned that students may never experience the performing arts. Therefore, they miss out not only on the skills learned in these classes, but also the incredible experiences that are opened up to them through the performing arts. I would ask that the state of Indiana see fine arts as a necessary part of teaching the whole student and helping students be well-rounded members of society. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Peter Sampson, Adam Dostalik, and Jeremy Earnhardt.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Indiana State Board of Education. My name is Peter Sampson. I'm in my 26th year of teaching here in Indiana, and I serve as the Director of Bands at Whiteland Community High School, and currently serve as past president of the Indiana State School Music Association. I'm on the board of both the Indiana Music Education Association, Indiana Jazz Educators Association, and serve on the National Association for Music Education Jazz Council. I'm here today to speak to the importance that Indiana recognize the fine and performing arts being specifically listed in the new diploma guidance as classes that fulfill the requirements of all readiness seals. While I am fortunate to work in a school corporation that values and understands the power of music in the development of children, not every school leader or school board across the state may understand this. This may lead to choices of school officials to see the performing arts as optional for their schools and thus denying students an education in a subject matter recognized at our federal government level as a core subject. Indiana was the home of our very first school band and orchestra program in the country, and we have a long, storied history of bringing Indiana students a musical education second to none. I would also like to request that the membership of a co-curricular performing arts ensemble, such as a marching band, show choir, symphony orchestra, color guard, dance team, etc., be allowed to count as a work-based hours towards all SEALs. Time after time, studies show that music students in the state of Indiana are some of the brightest in our schools. Just look at the top 25 students in the schools across the state, and you'll see performing arts students leading the way. The lessons they learn as a member of a co-curricular ensemble are equal to or surpass those of a traditional work environment. They learn teamwork, leadership, time management, complex problem solving, all while creating an opportunity to express themselves creatively. There's a reason why the CEO of the Lilly Corporation has been quoted as saying that one of the first things they look at when looking at an application is whether or not they have been a member of a musical ensemble at a college or high school level. They know that performing arts students come ready to work and understand what it takes to be successful in a business environment. Please allow the hundreds of hours of work and dedication of our students give to the school performing arts ensembles to count toward work-based hours for all readiness seals. Lastly, I would like to remind the State Board that Indianapolis is the national headquarters of Music for All, Drum Corps International, and the Percussive Arts Society. These national organizations bring tens of thousands of student performers and their families to our city to perform across the city and at Lucas Oil Stadium. These events bring a vast amount of revenue to our economy. The reason why they are here is because of the historically strong performing arts programs that our state has had for decades. I feel that if the state no longer is able to provide these programs for our students, these organizations have no reason to remain here in Indianapolis. As the parent of twin 8th grade students at Clark Pleasant Middle School, I wish to have the performing and fine arts could remain a required part of the high school diploma. However, at minimum, having the music and performing arts courses listed as requirements for all SEALs and membership of co-curricular performing arts ensembles counting toward work-based hours is a must. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Adam Dostalik, Jeremy Earnhardt, and then Dr. Brian Wiedner.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the State Board of Education. My name is Adam Dostalik, and I am the Associate Director of Bands at Whiteland Community High School, just down south of Greenwood. I'm also speaking to advocate for performing arts representation in the new high school diploma requirements. Our students' lives, we all know, are changing, especially in a post-pandemic world, and there is a need for change in what we offer our students. However, the need for a quality arts education has never been greater for our students. Music programs across the state have helped our students develop and learn work ethic skills and social skills that were lost in the COVID-19 pandemic and help prepare them for their future employment opportunities. Music is a language that communicates with all students, from the highest achieving seniors set to cure cancer in 10, 20 years down the road, to that young freshman on their first day of school just looking for a place to fit in. Many of these students do not realize the accepting community that programs across this great state provide until they try it. Studies after studies have shown that students with art class experiences have higher grades, graduate high school at a higher rate, and attend school higher than their non-musician peers. Without including arts programs as an option for students to meet requirements for the enrollment and employment honor seals for graduation, many of them will never have the motivation to try something that has proven to keep them coming back to school each and every day. Music students are also some of the hardest workers in schools, not just in our classes and rehearsals, but across the school as a whole. We've had numerous valedictorians and salutatorians come through our band program at Whiteland Community High School, a common story across the entire state. There's a simple reason for this. Music programs provide intangible skills that will support students in their academic work and in the workplace post-graduation. They pour hours into extra sectionals and outside of school rehearsals, not only to be the best musicians that they can be, but the best people and community members that they can be. Students have developed their communication skills, leadership skills, problem-solving abilities, adaptability to difficult situations, time management, conflict resolution, emotional management, the list goes on and on. These help to create a well-rounded individual, just as the proposed work learning opportunities do in your current proposals. We ask that the time that these students spend in co-curricular opportunities outside of the school day also count toward the 100-hour work learning requirement for many of your honors and honors plus diploma seals right now. Okay. In 1994, music was defined as a core subject federally. In a post-pandemic world, our students need these opportunities more than ever to catch up on lost social and work ethic skills. If the elimination of arts credit requirement stands as currently proposed, Indiana would become only the second state ever to do that, Nevada being the other right now. I humbly ask that you consider including the performing arts in your new diploma proposals, specifically to list outside of school rehearsals as work-based learning hours. Without your support, students may lose these opportunities. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Adam. Jeremy Earnhardt, Dr. Brian Wiedner, and looks like it's Petra Ohms. Yes.
Good morning. Chronic absenteeism. Do I get another 2 minutes now? A Virginia study by the Department of Education released this spring showed all Virginia high school seniors over the last 7 years that career arts students with 4 years of arts instruction have up to a 50% lower chronic absenteeism rate. The arts are part of the solution. Workforce development is fine arts is workforce development. My name is Jeremy Earnhardt, and my wife Gwendolyn and I are proud parents of Kirsten, who is fulfilling her fine arts requirements and physical education requirement as a trumpet player through band at Brownsburg High School. She earned her academic letter last year and is ranked in the top 100 of the 2027 class by the Indiana Girls Basketball Recruiting Report. That is to say, public school is awesome, so long as we require and provide a well-rounded education for all students. I stand here for the many folks who are unable to today as they are participating fully in the workforce after fulfilling their fine arts requirements. Like my wife, Gwen, who was a drum major of her marching band and is now a staff accountant at the Indianapolis Public Schools. Fine arts is workforce development. There is simply no time for video games, meth, or unplanned pregnancies during a 12-hour marching band day. As president and CEO of the Bands of America producer Music for All, we know that over the next 2 months, over 200 high school marching bands will perform at Lucas Oil Stadium, bringing per visit Indy over $30 million in economic impact by thousands of students from across the country fulfilling their fine arts requirements. While many states are adding to their fine arts requirements at both the middle and high school levels, If the current proposal stands, Indiana will be in the unenviable position of standing with Las Vegas's Nevada as the only other state in America in the last 30 years to remove fine arts as a requirement from state graduation standards. Rather than specializing kids into specific business tools, we must empower them to become economic-generating Swiss Army knives, not to build professional artists, but to build professional people. Through continuing to specify for graduates standards-based fine arts education. Workforce development is fine arts. Fine arts is workforce development. I urge you to keep what is working in our Core 40 and continue to require the fine arts.
Thank you, Jeremy. Dr. Brian Wiedner, Petra, and your last name I can't totally read, but if there is a Petra in here, that is probably you. And then Shayna Liv Terrain.
Good morning. My name is Brian Widener. I'm an associate professor of music education at Butler University. Currently serve as the chair of the Indiana Society for Music Teacher Education. I'm a state board member of the Indiana Music Education Association, a board member of the College Music Society's Music Education Council, and the Society for Music Teacher Education. Most importantly, I'm also a parent of 2 10th graders at Brownsburg High School who are both actively involved in all of their academics, including the fine arts. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today in the middle of what is National Arts in Education Week. First of all, I really would like to thank the board for listening to feedback over the past several months regarding diploma changes, in adding diploma seals and ensuring that the high school diploma in Indiana is both rigorous towards student learning as well as flexible for a range of different educational outcomes. Like several of my colleagues here today, I am here today to ask you to explicitly include arts education within the new Indiana diploma. As Indiana's society, industries, and businesses become increasingly international, it is critical that Indiana students have rich and varied explorations of living cultures through music, theater, art, dance, and language studies. Just as the inclusion of world perspectives in the social studies portion of the diploma allows for the study of past world cultures, I firmly believe that the inclusion of the arts and world language study for all high school students allows the future of Indiana to be better prepared for engaging with its rich and ever-changing cultural identity. As a state, we celebrate the fine arts of all sorts, from the storied cultural traditions of Indiana Avenue just north of us, to innovative institutions such as Dance Kaleidoscope in Newfields, to nationally recognized school programs and organizations at every level. These fabulous examples of the arts do not and cannot exist in a vacuum without vibrant arts programs in every school in every county across our state. Yesterday evening, I was an attendee at a meeting of the National Arts Education Alliance, and the meeting moderators specifically called out their concerns for 2 states for the fact that the arts are at risk due to their absence in arts in current education proposals. One of these was Oklahoma, the other was Indiana. The inclusion of a requirement for the arts as part of the high school diploma will ensure that every student in our state has access to arts and culture study and continues Indiana's legacy as a great state for the arts. According to the presentation at the August meeting, Secretary Jenner shared the primary targets of the diploma revisions, where the top 6 competencies were communication, collaboration, metacognition, leadership, critical thinking, and character. These are the same competencies that are the backbone upon which performing arts are based and built, around which students work collaboratively towards collective goals built around student ownership, agency, and leadership. For years, students who have participated in the fine arts have been sought by organizations and employers for their mastery with the executive function skills. Along with my other arts colleagues, I come to you today to ask for 3 distinct actions. 1, to add an elective for the fine arts and world languages back into the new Indiana diploma. 2nd, to create a fine arts seal to encourage rigorous arts study in high schools. The Florida Board of Education just adopted such a seal this past week. And to include the performing arts co-curricular and extracurricular activities as options for work-based learning for the Honors Plus seal. Thank you for your time, and again, happy National Arts in Education Week. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So we'll now have Petra, then Shayna, and then Sarah Wells.
Hi, and my last name is pronounced Omkis.
Yeah, I couldn't read your handwriting, but I will note it for next time, but thank you.
Yes, I'm also here to talk about the arts for high school. it. And it will be starting at my age because I am an 8th grader. And for starting, I know I'm only one person, but my entire life the arts has been a part of it. My mom graduated from Butler with a BFA as a dance background and danced professionally and is now dance faculty at Butler University. And my father is an African drummer and graduated from IU in Bloomington with a BA in art. Growing up with my parents, there's always been music and dance happening. Oh, thank you. And the creative outlet between the two of them brought me so much joy. But enough about my parents and daily lifestyle. After all, I'm 13. I'll start talking about all the students. If you consider deleting the performing arts to add more academics, you should know that most students my age aren't a big fan of just academics. They are more into and involved with the fun, creative parts our school has to offer. The arts bring students the gift for freedom, creativity, and being able to express oneself and be who you are. In math, you have equations and problems you have to solve with instructions and be told how to solve it. While in any kind of art, no matter whether it's visual, performing, or music, one can solve problems, but in an individual way. Getting rid of the arts diminishes creativity that all humans need, not just my age, but broader. Your brain grows so much. When I think about the possibilities of my future, I get so excited. I had talented educators and staff members from my education background at IPS 60, and now my current school, Northview Middle School. My current path is to be an actress. I want to develop my music, theater, and dance skills to help guide me on my journey. I realize academics are very important on this journey. I have really enjoyed the current schedule I have at Northview Middle School, which includes the following: English, math, science, social studies, Spanish, theater, show choir, and orchestra. One day I'd like to be a professional actress on a stage where I can be myself. I look forward to performing my heart out with the passive support with my teachers and professors. I'm positive that so many other fellow students that love the arts understand that they don't want just numbers and letters, but the joy of freedom of expression and learning across the performing arts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Petra. Shayna, Sarah, and then Jennifer Smith-Margroff.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Shina Liv Toronto, and I'm an orchestra director at Belzler Middle School in Lawrence Township. I'm in my 7th year of teaching, and I also wanted to add that I am from Las Vegas and heartbroken to hear some of the facts that were spoken today. I'm here to speak on the second draft of the proposed diploma changes. There have been a lot of positive changes to the proposed diploma changes, and I'm glad to see that Hoosier voices were listened to. Thank you for your ongoing work to make requirements that are flexible but maintain a well-rounded education. However, I am concerned for the performing arts. The second draft of the diploma does not explicitly require performing arts for any of the readiness seals. I understand that the purpose of personalized electives is to provide flexibility in achieving the readiness seals. My question to you: why would a student remain in their performing arts courses if it does not help them meet the requirements for these seals? Indiana has a rich musical culture that is simply being ignored by this draft of the diploma. Numerous studies have shown that students involved in music perform well in their academic classes, display higher level thinking when problem solving, and develop many desirable character traits such as adaptability, persistence, and creativity, just to name a few. By specifically including performing arts, I believe our Hoosier students would be better prepared post-high school with any combination of the seals. The enrollment seal will be enhanced with performing arts because it provides interdisciplinary learning. For example, when learning about the historical background behind Mozart's early symphonies, students are often surprised to learn that those were written in the decade before the Declaration of Independence was signed. This is only one small example of infinitely many examples of students engaging in this type of learning, and it greatly benefits our young Hoosiers as they take a more academic path. The performing arts industry provides many career paths that does not necessarily include performing on a stage. Someone has to organize the events at Hilbert Circle, and someone has to be a liaison for new talent to connect with exciting opportunities. The employment seal will provide more range and career paths beyond the typical academic and technical ones. The enlistment seal. I remember coming to the July board meeting and being surprised by some of the facts that Major General Lyles shared with us. One of the most important American traditions is that of our military bands. These positions are coveted by many, many musicians across the United States, and I've had quite a few friends go through the rigorous preparation for just the audition. After these talented musicians are awarded a seat in the ensembles, they also go through basic training. Music will help keep these American traditions alive, and it seamlessly aligns with the emphasis of public service and leadership. We actually saw that here well, actually not in this room, but the other room, in July when students from Hamilton Southeastern High School Marching Band testified on the impact music has had in their lives. Thank you for your time today as I speak on my concerns on behalf of many of my music education colleagues. We are all here for the same reason: successful Hoosier students. Including music intentionally in the SEAL requirements will further that goal and lead to a well-rounded and musical future. Thank you.
Thank you, Shayna. Sarah Wells, Jennifer Smith-Margroff, Abby Means, and last but not least, Clyde Gall.
Sarah Wells. I'm a student at Butler University and a pre-service music educator working with students in IPS and Washington Township. And I wish to speak briefly about how the proposed changes to the state requirements for high school diplomas will impact the fine arts. Right now, these proposed changes will create a large barrier to access for fine arts and education. In many cases, if there's not explicit reason to continue arts in districts and buildings that are particularly in rural and urban areas, those programs are going to disappear completely and leave disparaging gaps in access to these experiences. The arts already face many barriers in education, and I'm asking that you invest in policies which won't hinder them by including the fine arts specifically and I firmly believe that the fine arts are a great way for students to develop the top 6 durable competencies which have been outlined in the proposed changes. As a lifelong musician and pre-service musician, it's all good. Oh my gosh. I'm always looking to my peers, colleagues, and students to demonstrate communication, collaboration, metacognition, leadership, critical thinking, and character in the music classroom. I know firsthand that these are life skills which I was taught through participation in music ensembles, and these are virtues which I intend to also teach and instill in my future music classroom. I also want to connect back to the school attendance data that we've been presented with today, because I believe that the presence of fine arts within schools can only help the attendance issues we see. I'm a 2022 high school graduate, and so I saw firsthand the data that we're talking about today. Personally, I was the kid in high school who was chronically absent, as I dealt with various mental and physical health issues. And throughout my high school career, I was involved in various music ensemble groups in my district, and during my senior year of high school, I took an internship where I would work with our elementary school students in the beginning string orchestra program twice a week after school. I remember on a good number of days that even though I was struggling, I showed up to school because I felt so called to be there for the music program specifically, for my section and orchestra, for the kids I taught, and I felt like I had purpose. It was because of the music program and the arts program in my district that I showed up. My personal anecdote is one of many that I've heard from my peers, colleagues, and students about how art gave them purpose to show up and be present. I worked with 5th graders at a school in IPS within recent years, where they were in their first semester starting a band program there. There were core teachers there, and my cooperating teacher shared with me that the students there in that band program oftentimes were showing up for that band program. These were kids that might not have showed up at school otherwise. Like I've mentioned previously, we need to make sure that the access to fine and performing arts in schools isn't facing more of a barrier than it already is. It can only benefit our students and our future generations to have fine arts explicitly included in our diploma requirements. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. Jennifer, Abby, and then Clyde.
Good morning, Secretary Jenner and members of the board. As she said, my name is Jennifer Smith-Margroff. I'm a Spanish teacher at Tecumseh Junior High School in Lafayette, and I serve as the ISTA Vice President. On behalf of our members, I would like to thank the board and your staff for all of the work on the revised draft proposal of the new diploma requirements. We appreciate the board listening to the educators' detailed testimony on the impacts these diplomas would have had on their students and the incorporation of many of their recommendations into the new draft, especially in the areas of academic rigor, flexibility, and access. We look forward to hearing more details about and working with the DOE and the State Board of Education on the more nuanced areas of implementation for the employment and enlistment seals and the work-based learning experiences. Thank you very much for, again, listening today and for your time and attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. We have Abby and Clyde.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Abby Means, and I am the Assistant Professor and Coordinator of the Music Education Program at Indiana State University. I want to start by saying I appreciate the changes that have been made to the new high school diploma based on feedback you have received from the people in Indiana. I still have some concerns, but what I want to bring today is actually the concerns of my students. So I teach classes with music education students, physical education students, and secondary education students. And so I just want to share some of their thoughts. And I will probably go to the timer. I'm just warning you. I'll just stop when we get there. All right. Student number 1 says, I feel like the diploma should include 1 or more credits for the arts. Many kids should be able to have that option because if it is not required, then music programs will suffer because of it, and in doing so, there will be no teachers available because the smaller school districts will not be able to support paying a teacher that only has a couple of students a day. Therefore, some students are not going to even be offered a fine arts class in high school. Second student says, I came from a very small, poor school where there already are not many opportunities, so the new diploma would make it where it is even less possible for the kids to get what they need or want, especially with the arts. My next student said, my issues with the new diploma is that it is forcing students to decide what they want to be at the age of 14, and a child shouldn't need to make that decision so early on. On top of that, if a student decides they want to go to college after spending 3 years on the employment path of the diploma, I fear they will not be prepared. Student number 4 said, eliminating the requirement for higher level math and science classes sounds beneficial for students that struggle with these subjects at first glance. However, getting rid of these requirements can do more harm than good. Not only are we implying that these subjects are less important than they are, but we're also depriving students of the chance to challenge themselves. Student number 5 said, I believe the new diploma places unforeseen pressure on students who are in the midst of adolescence to preemptively decide on their future, despite them not being able to predict the impact of those decisions in the long term. Student number 6 said, the new high school diploma proposed is overcomplicating an already functioning system while also limiting students' potential. This new diploma will force kids to solely focus on one academic path and also possibly push them away from achieving more because of these new standards, some of which are seemingly unachievable. Student number 7 said, would you let an 8th grader decide the path of your next 8 years of your life? If the answer is no, then we have a reason why this diploma will not work. Student number 8 said, I have taught for a year as a long-term substitute teacher at a Title I school and come from a long line of educators. I write this to tell you I understand what these graduation requirements mean for the general population of students. With these new graduation requirements where the students will have work-based and community-based experiences, it will be an extreme challenge for the population of students that I work with. As an aspiring special education teacher, what are the guarantees that my future students will have workplaces and community-based establishments that can and will accommodate my students? I have to work extra hard as it is to ensure they get the same treatment that the general population students receive. These requirements that are trying to take effect will only make these hurdles higher for my students.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So as Claude comes up, just a clarification, there is 0 requirement for a 14-year-old, 8th grader, 9th grader. They do not have to make their call then. We do not want them to. What we do want is for students to have the ability to explore various options. I think that I wanted to say that because that was a myth that swirled a bit out of control after the first draft. And I think that came from when I presented on March 27th, I pointed to a requirement that has been in state law for years and years and years, requiring students to have a graduation plan beginning in middle school. That graduation plan, even set back in statute years ago, is very nimble and flexible, but it's to get the student to start thinking about their future hopes and dreams. So I want to be clear on behalf of the Indiana State Board of Education, in 0 way do we want to require a student to make a selection at that age, but we do want to make sure that all of our children are exposed with the opportunities that they could pursue in their future. So, Clyde, come on up. Last but not least.
Thank you, Dr. Jenner. My name is Clyde Gaw, and I represent the Art Education Association of Indiana. The AEAI impacts the learning experiences of approximately 125,000 students in the state of Indiana. If you are ever able to visit the state capitol during the month of March, you might see the exhibit of children's art that we provide in the South Atrium each year during Youth Art Month. Having listened to Dr. Keller's presentation on chronic absenteeism today, Mr. Durham's question on the why of chronic absenteeism is so prevalent strikes me as particularly important. And one possibility stands out in my mind. Children are not connecting to their learning in the classroom or in the school. We know from data supplied by the National Art Education Association and Americans for the Arts that creativity, experiential education, personal expression are critical to student engagement. If a child is not in love with their learning, they're going to disengage. 12 years ago, I remember speaking with an 8-year-old child in my art class. She was working a brush into a surface of wet tempera paint. I asked her what she was doing. She said, "I'm making shiny surface art." I congratulated her and I said, "Oh, that's fascinating." The young artist later wrote in her journal, she said, "Art is a part of being creative. When you're creative, you're doing better than you are when you're not." I thought that was an interesting piece of qualitative evidence, anecdotal evidence. Why is she doing better when she is creative in school than when she is not being creative in school? Could it be realizing personal ideas through art is a powerful psychogenic act, a psychogenic event where the individual can reflect and process their internal realm and external world? We know that art experience expands executive thinking skills, calms emotional disequilibrium, ameliorates trauma, integrates mind, body, and spirit, improves mental well-being, and increases children's motivation to attend school. Human beings are biologically hardwired for hands-on learning. This brings me to my concern about changes to Indiana's high school graduation requirements. Will children's access to high-quality fine arts experiences become marginalized as a result of these graduation requirement changes? We cannot say we will do what is best for children and then implement policies that cut or eliminate essential, vital learning opportunities from schools. I thank the Indiana State Board of Education for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you,
to speak
Clyde.
to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. And that concludes the comments today. Just a final thought, and thank you for several of you who recognized our red pen has been very much out throughout this whole process. The Hoosier voice has been all of our focus in building to the second draft. Our red pen is still very much out. One other clarification that I think I heard in the comments that several people absolutely get, but there may be confusion, so just want to point it out as we're all working together to get to a good spot. The current, if you look at that current side-by-side document, it has the Core 40 and the new diploma. So the Core 40 is about 90% of our students in Indiana get the Core 40 or the academic honors diploma or academic or technical. Of that 90%, about 35% of those are getting the academic honors diploma. So the current requirements, and I think several, probably most of the people I heard picked up on this, but just again, as we work together to make it better, want to make sure we're clear. The current state, it is not required in Core 40. It's listed as an option, which we very intentionally as a board pulled that over to the personalized electives, performing and fine arts, because that is very, very important to many students, as we heard today from several of you. The place that just very transparently, that several of you pointed out where it is not right now, is in that enrollment honors seal, which is essentially the academic honors diploma with some changes. So we hear you loud and clear. We thank you for elevating your voice and giving us some good data and information to think through. We still have at least probably a month and a half before we'll make a decision. It will be in November or December, and quite frankly, really depends on when we get that rule posted. So the next step is our team is actively working with the various entities within state government to get the wording and the language in rule form so that it can be posted to the Indiana registrar. At that point, because remember, we're required to do a second draft, we're required to post it twice. From that point, it starts the 30-day clock to which the general public, and we'll push that out, right, when it's posted for the general public to respond to any of it. And then following that 30 days, that's the earliest of which the board would vote. So already, to be clear, we're at least at the November board meeting. Now, for those of you wondering, and I know I see several of our media partners there, I will share, we will make the vote by December. We will not break Indiana law. We will complete that by the December date that is required. We are on pace to do that. And again, your feedback is why we're in such a good spot today. So please keep that coming. It's very, very helpful. On that note, any other comments from board members? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.